Okay, so today we're going to explore tone, but we're going to explore using mark making and a biro. So there are a few different ways that you can create different tones with a pen, and if you want to kind of have a bit of a practice before you start, then obviously feel free. I'm just going to whiz through those different ways. So the first thing to think about is pressure. In the same way that when you're using your pencil to create tone, you can apply different pressure to create different tones. So if I start with a very gentle pressure here, making very kind of light marks, then I'm going to get a very, very light tone. Whereas if I start applying a heavier pressure, obviously those lines are going to become darker and that tone is going to be darker. And I can apply even more pressure, and again, that will be even darker. The other way in which you can create different tones is by layering more over the top. So I can put some just going diagonal, or I can make that even darker by putting some more going in the opposite direction. Yeah, or can even do it horizontal as well. You could do it in 4 different directions. Okay, and the same is true of this one here. So I could, again, I'm doing a darker pressure here. I'm just going to layer up lines in lots of different directions, and you can see that that makes it darker again. The other thing that you can do is think about spacing. So if I put my lines further apart, okay, then compare that to lines which are the same pressure, okay, but are just closer together. You can see that this looks a little bit darker, and then I can put them even closer together still, and that creates the same effect. So it makes it even darker, sorry. So you've got pressure, okay, you've got layers, okay, and then you've got spacing, okay. So pressure, layers, and spacing. There we go. So you can, as I said, if you want to have a go on the back, but just kind of experimenting with different pressures like that. So, but what we really want to focus on doing first today is these light areas, and then we're going to work backwards like this. So on the light area, you just want, as I said, a very gentle pressure. Remember, you don't want to have those lines really close together, and you don't want to have any other layers like that. I would like you to try and make sure that things are controlled. That means that they are staying within the lines of the boxes. Because when we kind of apply this technique to the drawing, or the true drawing that we're going to do, you want to be able to apply your cross-hatching and your mark making in particular sections. So it's really important that you practice being able to do that in a controlled, that just means a neat way. So on this one here, I'm going to start with the same level of pressure to begin with. Now, a good tip to help stop you going out of the box is to start on one side of the box like this, okay, and flick it inwards and then come from the other side like that, look. Okay, so you're less likely to come outside of the boxes. I'm going to repeat that process, okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start at the edge of the box and flicking it into the center like that, and then I'm going to come from the other side, and I'm just going to repeat that process like this. I'm pressing a little bit harder now, and you can see that I've made my lines a little bit closer than the previous box. Now I think I'm going to do another layer over the top. So I'm going to go the other direction like that. Remember, starting at the edge of the box, flicking them into the center, and then repeat that process from the opposite side. And it just, as I said earlier, helps create a more controlled effect. So you can see now that I've got a slightly different tones starting to appear, and I'm just going to continue this process. So for this one, I'm going to put a little bit more pressure on my pen, because obviously this tone wants to be a little bit darker. So remember the 3 different things that you can do. So you've got pressure, you've got distance, so spacing, and then you've also got layering. So for this one again, I'm going to turn my paper, I'm going to come from the outside of the box, flicking it inwards, and then I'm probably going to do another layer on here, because this one, as I said, is a little bit darker than the previous one. So this time I'm going to come across the box like this. Still using the same technique, so still coming from the edge of the box and flicking inwards, And I'm probably going to leave that there for now. The thing is, you can always add more later. So when we looked at tonal drawing, we discussed the fact that you can always layer more over later. So obviously the same is true when you're working with cross-hatching. So again, I'm going to have fairly close lines together, I think, here, because this tone is really dark. I'm probably going to apply a little bit more pressure on my next layer, because that's probably not enough pressure. There we go, so flicking these back, starting at the edge. Sometimes your biro might start to kind of become a little bit blobby. Don't worry about that too much. But if it does, just kind of turn the paper over and just do that, and it will help to clean it. Okay, so again, I'm going back to my barks, flicking that over, turn it around the other side, do a diagonal in the other direction, always starting from the edge of the shape and flicking inwards like that. Now, as I said earlier, I think I need a little bit of a heavy pressure on this one. So with my next layer, I'm just going to start pressing a little bit harder. And you can see that that's really effective. That has a massive impact on the density of the tone. So it makes it much, much darker. Now, I'm going to put another layer again on this one because this is really dark. So again, I'm flicking from the outside inwards. I mean, don't be too much if you get a small amount of mark making outside the box, but we really do want to encourage you to try and stay within those shapes as much as you possibly can. Okay, and then I'm just going to add a little tiny bit more there. All right, so I think there's a bit of a jump between these two, but I can come back and I can address that later. So again, this is the last one. I'm going to press really hard, and you can see that my lines are so close together here. So close together. So coming from the outside and flicking in. I mean, if you want to turn it round, you can do. I know we talk a lot about how effective that is and how important it can be to kind of rotate your paper. So if you feel more comfortable turning that round so that your pen is coming from the top, you can do, but that is up to you. All right. So it's looking a bit patchy at the moment, so that doesn't really matter because obviously I need to put my other layers on the top. So there we go. Pressing really, really hard. So this one, I am layering the lines, or layering the lines? I am putting the lines really, really close together. Oops, come outside the box a little bit. As I said, don't worry too much if that happens. Just try your best. All right. You can just keep going really until you feel like your tone's dark enough, but obviously just like with the pencil, it's much easier to go back and add a little bit more than it is to take away. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm quite happy with the transition there, but I feel like there's still a lot of patchiness in here, so I'm just going to add another layer over the top. I mean, these lines are now so thickly layered and they are so close together, and I'm pressing quite hard on there, so that gives like a really nice kind of almost black tone there. So as I said, I felt the transition here maybe could be a little bit more effective, so I'm just going to put a tiny little bit more pressure on here, but not much. I'm just going to work back into some of the areas that I feel that may be a little bit empty, but I don't want to overwork it. So I'm probably going to leave it at that, to be honest. All right, so you've got really dark. So we'll just go through the different things you can do again. So pressure, layers, and spacing. All right. Now, what I want everybody to do when they're happy that they've got these different graduated cross-hatched tones, I'd like you to have a go at this tonal bar along the bottom. Now, this is slightly different because this is going to change gradually, just like when we did the tonal one. This time, I would like you to start at the bottom. Okay, and I would like you, that was a bit of a wobbly line, don't worry too much if that happens to you. I would like you to start at the dark side, and I would like you to flick those lines all the way down, but remember to leave a space at the bottom for the lightest tone. So remember, when we do highlights, it's just a case of leaving that area completely empty. So flicking your pen is also a really good way of making tones fade outwards. I'm going to start working back into that in the same way. So when I'm down here at the bottom in the dark section, I want to have my lines really close together, and I want to apply quite a heavy pressure. as I come along this bar, I'm going to start just moving my lines slightly further apart. You can see that I have just come out of the box a little bit. I probably need to take a bit more care there. And then I'm just going to space them really far apart now, and I'm going to start like fading them into nothing like that at the edge. And again, as I said earlier, you can turn your paper around if that helps. Make sure you can see. Start on one side, come down that box as you're working, flicking into the center. So now I'm going to start repeating that process of spacing my lines out, but also reducing that pressure as I come across that box there. And as I move down, remember this box is different because you want your tone to slowly fade gradually, to graduate, which is different to the boxes at the top where they're all very separate tones. Right? So I still want another layer because I don't think it's dark enough here at all. So I'm going to turn that round again, and I'm going to do a diagonal this time. Again, pressing really nice and hard here at the bottom, flicking into the center. You might find, as I said earlier, that you need to stop, and you might need to just kind of almost like wipe your pen on the back. If you do, that's absolutely fine. There we go. Spacing them further out, reducing the pressure again, and then just fading that out. You can't see that. And then just fading that out to the end like that. Oops. There we go. All right. I still feel that I'm going to have another layer, however, on the bottom. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a vertical line next. I'm just going to finish this off. So coming to do my other side. Spacing it out, reducing the pressure. Okay, until I get to the end where I'm just going to fade that out, and I'm just going to have almost nothing. Again, as I said, this side for me isn't dark enough. I want the end to be this dark and fading gradually. So I'm just going to press really nice and hard. This time my lines are going to be so close together like this. Look, really, really close. And then move your pen across the paper, spacing them out as you go until you've got all the way down. In fact, not all the way down, until you get to about here, I think, and then just start blending them into nothing, because you don't want all of the layers all the way down. So this part here, you don't want many layers at all. And you can really just keep working into that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some really dark lines, but I'm going to flick them out because obviously I don't want that dark tone to be all the way down. Okay, and you just keep working into it until you're happy that you've got that nice kind of gradual fade. Don't worry about getting it absolutely perfect. It's not quite the same as when we do tone. Obviously, with tone with pencil, obviously we can't get rid of all the lines because that's the whole point of the process. But we can try to ensure that those tones are graduated slowly. Okay. There we go. So you do this first, okay, and then you do that second with that nice fade. I mean, there are certain bits here that I could arguably work into a little bit more. For example, just blending these out a little bit. So nice hard pressure at the end, flicking it towards the end until it looks kind of roughly something like that. Okay, good luck.